One Justice League member was a literal angel, another was once mocked so badly he became a punchline, and another died after being tricked into turning his own body into glass. These are the Forgotten Leaguers' time almost erased, characters with bizarre powers, brutal endings, and strange histories that make them some of DC's most overlooked heroes. If you're into comics and nerd content like this, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Vibe started as Paco Ramon, a streetwise Latino hero introduced in Justice League of America Annual No. 2 in 1984, when Aquaman rebuilt the team in Detroit. He brought a rough, urban edge the league had never had before, which made him stand out and also made him a target for fans who hated that era. In canon, he was even the leader of the gang Los Lobos before joining, giving the Justice League Detroit lineup a much grittier image. What makes Vibe more than forgotten trivia is how hard DC later tried to redeem him. He became the first active Justice League member killed in action, which gave him a place in league history. But years later, the New 52 reinvented him with interdimensional vibration powers and a solo series. That relaunch turned him from a mock Detroit-era symbol into a character powerful enough to threaten the Speed Force and track breaches between worlds. Gypsy was Cynthia Reynolds, a runaway teenager introduced in Justice League of America Annual No. 2 in 1984. After escaping an abusive home, she used her illusion and chameleon-like powers to survive the streets of Detroit, right as Aquaman relocated the league there. That timing pulled her into the infamous Justice League Detroit era, where she became one of the team's youngest, scrappiest, and most overlooked official members in DC history. What makes Gypsy interesting is that she was never just camouflage. Different stories gave her invisibility, projection effects, limited precognition, and later ties to teams like Justice League Task Force, the Conglomerate, and Birds of Prey. DC even rebooted her in the New 52 as Cynthia Mordith, linking her back to Vibe and proving she was never fully abandoned by the publisher, only badly forgotten by most readers for years. Steel was Hank Haywood III, the grandson of Commander Steel, and he debuted in Justice League of America Annual No. 2 in 1984 as part of the Detroit rebuild. After catastrophic injuries, he was rebuilt into a heavily armored cyborg body, turning him into the team's human tank. His family's support even helped give the Detroit League its bunker headquarters, tying his legacy directly to that controversial and often mocked era of the team. Hank's history gets darker the deeper you go. He fought in Crisis on Infinite Earths, was hurled into the far future by Warp, and later became one of the Detroit era's great tragedies when a Professor Evo android mortally wounded him during Legends. His grandfather could not save him, and decades later DC brought him back only as a Black Lantern, which says a lot about how often this version of Steel has been ignored by modern fans. Blue Jay is Jay Abrams, a tiny winged hero from Angor who first appeared in Justice League of America No. 87 in 1971. He belonged to the Champions of Angor, a group built as a clear mirror of Marvel concepts, and he was essentially DC's answer to Yellow Jacket rather than Hawkeye. Blue Jay could shrink to about 7 inches tall, sprout blue wings, and fly, which made him one of the strangest, quirkiest League recruits ever published. After Angor was devastated, Blue Jay eventually found a place on Earth and joined Justice League Europe, where he was often treated like an afterthought despite a genuinely unusual power set. One of his weirdest stories threw him into the future, where he failed a Legion of Superheroes recruitment and ended up with the Legion of Substitute Heroes instead. That kind of bizarre, deep-cut trivia is exactly why he feels so forgotten now. Silver Sorceress was Laura Cynthia Nielsen, a magical survivor from Angor who first appeared in Justice League of America, No. 87 in 1971. She was created as a clear Scarlet Witch homage and arrived with Blue Jay and Wandjina, only to find that their world had already been destroyed by nuclear catastrophe. That tragedy gave her a surprisingly sad core long before she ever joined Justice League Europe as one of its strangest members. What makes Silver Sorceress memorable is how tragic her whole DC run became. After joining the League's European branch, she helped battle the extremists, the same nightmare figures tied to her ruined world. Her story ended when Dreamslayer took control through Maxwell Lord, and she died stopping him on Kui Kui Kui. For a Justice League member, that should be legendary, yet now it feels like lost trivia buried in the 90s. General Glory is Joseph Jones, a patriotic throwback introduced in Justice League America number 46 in 1991 by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis. He was built as an obvious Captain America parody, complete with old-fashioned values and a Bucky-style partner named Ernie the Battling Boy. That was the joke. But the character also worked as a real clash between Golden Age heroism and the weird, cynical mood of the Justice League era in the early 90s. What makes him easy to forget is that General Glory lived in a strange space between satire and sincerity. He joined Justice League International, appeared around the Justice League Europe years, and even had his mythology expanded when the truth about his past came into question. DC later introduced Donovan Wallace as a successor to the name, but neither version ever escaped deep-cut status among League fans, even with that extra legacy twist. Amazing Man was Will Everett III, the grandson of the Golden Age hero, and he debuted in Justice League America, year 86, in 1994. His power let him copy the properties of matter and energy by touch, making him one of the most flexible recruits the League had. Wonder Woman personally brought him into the team during the Overmaster crisis, which should have launched him into bigger things, instead of turning him into one more forgotten League name. His career after that became pure overlooked 90s DC history. Will helped defeat the Overmaster, stayed with Captain Atom's Extreme Justice, and later joined Crimson Fox's unofficial new Justice League Europe lineup. Then came one of the cruelest deaths on this whole list. Mist tricked him into copying glass instead of stone and shattered him in Starman. For a legacy hero with that power set, DC barely gave him a real chance to last. Blue Devil began as Daniel Cassidy, a Hollywood stuntman and special effects expert who got trapped inside a demon suit built for a movie. He first appeared in Fury of Firestorm the 24 in 1984, then quickly spun into his own cult solo series. That alone makes him unusual. Before he was a mystical hero, he was basically a working-class effects guy whose fake monster costume turned into one of DC's strangest superhero identities forever. His Justice League ties came later, during one of DC's weird open-door eras, but his story only got darker from there. After dealing with Neron, Dan stopped being a man stuck in a suit and became a literal demon. He later turned up in Justice League Unlimited and Young Justice, while the comics gave him an even grimmer fate when Mist, disguised as Ice Maiden, killed him with holy water during the doomed Justice League Europe revival. Ice Maiden was Sigrid Nansen, a Norwegian heroine whose powers came from experiments meant to recreate an ancient ice-based people. The process left her permanently blue-skinned and tied her to the Global Guardians before Justice League readers really noticed her. She later became linked to the League's orbit as a conceptual replacement for Ice, giving DC a colder, stranger mirror to one of the JLI era's most beloved members for years. Her deepest Justice League connection came in the short-lived later Justice League Europe lineup with Crimson Fox, Amazing Man, and Blue Devil. That run ended in brutal fashion when Mist lured Sigrid away, took her place, and infiltrated the team while disguised as Ice Maiden. In later DC stories, Sigrid was also tied to the name Glacier, which gave the character one more reinvention even after her League history had faded into obscurity. Zauriel first appeared in JLA number 6 in 1997 as a literal angel from Heaven's Eagle host, created during Grant Morrison's run. He fell to Earth, joined the Justice League, and arrived wearing celestial armor, carrying a flaming sword and using powers like flight and a holy sonic cry. That already made him unforgettable, but the real oddity is that he was born from one of the strangest editorial problems in League history at DC itself. Morrison originally wanted Hawkman for the role, but DC considered that name untouchable because his continuity was a total mess, so the Angel concept stayed and Zauriel was born instead. The comics even nodded to that by having Aquaman mistake him for Qatar Hole. Later, he moved beyond the League into stories like JLA, Paradise Lost, Shadow Pact, and Justice League Dark, but today he is mostly remembered by hardcore DC readers. Those were 10 forgotten Justice League members who deserved far more attention than they ever got, with incredible powers, strange histories, and some truly tragic endings. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me which Forgotten Justice League member deserved a bigger spotlight.